All right, here we are. Common Sense Ohio, 5/10/2024. 5/10/2024, Common Sense Ohio, coming at you with your weekly dose of common sense right from Ohio, right from the middle. We are here at Channel 511 Studio C, brought to you by Harper Plus Accounting. If you, and we got the electronic notifications in the background. If you,
that was subliminal.
A subliminal notification.
Right, exactly. Yep, it's brought to you by.
Yeah, brought to you by bling. Yep. So brought to you by Harper Plus Accounting. If you have any interest in any of the back episodes of the shows, because you're just now tuning in, I highly encourage you to go to commonsenseohioshow.com, where we make it easy to like, subscribe, listen, check out content, check out blogs, Norm's blogs that just are rolling out like thunder in the spring in Ohio with tornadoes behind them. So anyway, we're going to get right at it. If you've been tuning in, if you haven't, you'll soon know this. We've been given little World War II tidbits of the day, facts about World War II. Why do I do this? Because years ago, when I was back in law school in the 90s, the Columbus Dispatch, a former newspaper here, well, it's still around, but not really like a newspaper. A newspaper, but what's the one that's gone? Citizen's Journal used to come out in the evening.
That was it.
But the Dispatch always had this day, 50 years ago today in history or something. And in the 90s, that meant we were learning World War II tidbits. So there was always like a throwback to a news story from World War II. And I just thought that was cool. So when I got the Dispatch delivered at my curb every morning, as I was getting ready for law school, drinking my coffee, I would read the World War II fact of the day. So that's why we're doing it here. One thing good that came from the Columbus Dispatch.
There was no yahoo.com to read.
No, not you had to sign in with like CompuServe or something in a phone mode, where you put your phone in the thing. But anyway, on this day in World War II, last week I said I was going to talk about the end of World War II, but instead I think it's far more appropriate to talk about the beginning, because on May 10, 1940, at approximately 5:35 a.m., Germany invades. They go right through Belgium. They go south, right around the Maginot Line, and the rest, as they say, is history. They plow through. Within days, they were, or maybe by June, they were. What was Dunkirk? That's mid-June-ish.
Yeah.
They had pushed the Allied forces all the way back to Dunkirk, and if you've seen the movie, if not even read the story, you don't even have to read anymore. You can just watch movies. You can see, learn about the evacuation at Dunkirk. Pretty soon, France. It was just within days. France had surrendered. The Vichy government eventually emerges, and the dark cloud sort of descends upon the continent.
Yeah.
In the world, really.
Yeah.
So what was interesting, I'm a Winston Churchill fan. So, but if you look at English history, up until that time, a guy named Neville Chamberlain, who is a lot like Biden, an appeaser, who thought he could just make Hitler happy and keep giving ground, ceding the field, giving him more, giving him more, giving him more, giving him more. Now, ironically, it's worth a discussion to say this. We did take away too much after World War I. So, we basically decimated Germany. We created a barren field with nothing there. And, if you do that and then leave, sort of like we did in Afghanistan back in the 80s, bad stuff emerges. It's got to.
The Allies at Treaty of Versailles was a disaster. And one thing, it's maybe the only good thing I could say about Woodrow Wilson, is he did object to the overreaching at the end of World War I. He objected. He signed the treaty, but he signed it holding his nose. And he told them, it's wrong what you're doing, because this is going to come back and bite you.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah. And those who have studied these wars say there was really no World War I or II. There was just one big war. It wasn't even that long between them, really.
With an intermission.
Yeah, with an intermission.
Right,
and you could even go further into the Cold War, because same thing.
Desert Storm 1 and Desert Storm 2.
Yeah.
Like we did not conclude the job in Desert Storm 1. We did not get the job done.
So you can't just and the United States is notorious for this.
Notorious.
Right? It's like we want to win. We want to win now. We want to win quick. And if we can't, then the politics get in the way, and we can't do anything. But anyway, as a result of this, Chamberlain
or we don't want to win, and we just
act like we want to win.
We just languish,
half measures,
like that thing in Afghanistan that went on. The longest war in American history. What was it, like 25
years?
It's something crazy.
Just because we couldn't pull it. It just couldn't find. We had all the resources. We could have done it. We could have done what. But it's just classic America.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So we now have Biden, who's riding both sides of this. He's basically created an embargo for Israel. At the same time, a week ago, he's given this speech in support of the Holocaust and we'll never forget and blah, blah, blah. And then he delays I guess he signs the order right before he gives the Holocaust speech, but doesn't publish it until the week later, so he could still look like he's supporting Israel at the same time he creates an embargo for weapons. It's like you can't play both sides of this stuff, and that's what Chamberlain was doing at the time. So
yes.
I try to always tie the histories together. Like he who doesn't study history is doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
And this is happening. Is the weak leadership causes this crap.
Yeah, I mean the very definition of feckless.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, I
mean, just absolutely feckless. That's a great word for it.
Yeah.
And what Churchill was espousing, it was the motto of the old Strategic Air Command, painted on every sign at every base: peace through strength.
Yep.
Right? If you want peace, be the baddest MFer on the planet.
Sure. And Reagan knew it, and then Margaret Thatcher knew it.
That's right.
Back in the 80s.
Yeah.
They had the same sort of philosophy.
Carry a big stick.
Yep. And so, historically at the time, Chamberlain was in charge, and quickly he was ousted, and Churchill takes over, and sort of in this combined party. Now, I don't presume to know British politics all that well, but he basically, it was sort of like like a lot like what's going on in Israel. Like there's this consolidated war cabinet of all the parties, like, all right, now we got to get together and we got to fight this war. This is like for our survival.
And he had been, since the Nazis came to power, he had been making speeches in the House of Commons for a decade, condemning British policy of weakness and not building up the military, not being ready to face off against Hitler. He had been saying these kinds of things for 10, 12 years.
Not unlike what's going on in Canada with Poilievre and what's his name, Trudeau.
Yeah.
And eventually.
And so when the fecal matter hit the rotating air handler, Churchill was the natural guy.
Yeah, the guy with the gusto.
That's right.
The guy with the brass who's going to come in and take care of it.
Because he was the lone voice.
So his blood, toil, tears, and sweat speech is sort of this famous thing. And I'm not going to play the whole thing. I happen to stop it right on a clip, and hopefully we can all hear it. So we're gonna. He goes in. This is on, I think, the 13th of May. So this is a few days later. He comes in, and here he is.
I would say to the House, as I said to those who have joined the government, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. We have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many long months of struggle and of suffering. You ask, what is our policy? I will say, it is to wage war by sea, land, and air, with all our might, and with all the strength that God can give us, to wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark and lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our...
All right, we'll stop it there. But doesn't it give you chills?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like the world was listening.
Yeah.
And did you
Talk
notice?
about painting a picture of your enemy.
Right.
Just one sentence there.
There's two things he said that you can't say today, right? He talked about God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do that.
No,
and then he also talked about his population, and of course, by extension, when America entered the war, sacrifice. And you just think about this bad flu that we had called COVID, and there no sacrifice was called upon.
No,
in America. And
there was sacrifice. But you know how they twisted it around. Like we should sacrifice our livelihoods, our businesses, and everything else, so you guys can take over and give the money to the rich people.
Well, and we'll prop you up. But my point was basically, and I was watching this movie called Worth with Michael Keaton, and it's all about compensating after the Pearl Harbor-like attack of 9/11. How we're compensating people who were simply victims. Come on, man, most of them weren't heroes. They weren't the firemen going up the stairwell.
And why we did a show on this years ago. So it's like,
well, where's the sacrifice? There should be a sting when there's a wrong against your country. There's a sting. There's a sacrifice.
Well, when here's the thing that was true then that I fear is not true now, but I also think that there's hope. I don't think we love our country. Like these people protesting, these people fighting against Israel, like all the stuff you hear.
Yeah.
I don't think they care two craps about Israel and Palestine, but they ally with these people because they have one thing in common: they hate the country.
Yeah.
And they think the United States is bad. They think that we're evil. They think that the Western civilization upon which Israel is founded is somehow bad and it needs to be dismantled. So they have that common ground. And you wonder. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is I think it is an extreme minority of people that are just the loudest voices right now. I think most people still love the country. At least I do.
And my hope is it's that.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I talked to my son who's in college. I talked to other people whose kids are around. And by and large, they're supporting the country. It's like enough's enough. And sometimes it takes something like a backlash or something like this or some moment, some big event like Germany invading in 1940 to wake everybody up that you can't just put your head in the sand and let this crap go.
Yeah.
And, then the United States has been time and time again sort of guilty of this. We didn't really care about the Revolutionary War. At least most people didn't. You had a few that did, and they had a revolution. And then next thing you know, the fight's going on in people's backyard farms, and they're like, "Well, wait a minute, you can't come in my house." So then the people start the same thing in 1812, and nobody gave two crap. In fact, people weren't. I mean, you use the word impressment to people out in the farms. They're like, "Impress what? I'm doing my job here. I don't need to worry about this."
Right.
But then they burn D.C.
You encapsulate it right there. I'm doing my job. I'm doing this stuff here. I don't have time for all the worldly. I got 80% of my life is doing this to survive.
A very American notion, I think.
Yeah.
Like I want to be free. I want the government out of my life. I want to just do what I do, take care of my family. I realize I'm sweating in the fields all day long, and I'm working to do what I can and we're going to work around the government. And most of the time, it doesn't make any difference. But wait a minute, you burned Washington D.C.
Yeah.
Now we have a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's how we felt at 9/11 to some extent.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening now is people are watching these idiots hoist the Palestinian flag in American government universities.
Yeah.
And enough's enough.
Yeah.
I'm hoping there's a backlash here. And, I think Biden is stepping into a cesspool that he can't get out of here. Like trying to ride both sides of the bench here or both sides of the fence here it doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. Like he's who's he appeasing? His flank? I mean, these like what American is cool with hoisting a Palestinian flag?
Right.
Where ours should be.
Right.
Like who's cool with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even Mayor Adams.
Yeah, not even Mayor Adams.
Yeah.
So
like I don't support that on any level whatsoever. No matter what you feel about the war in Israel and Gaza. Like wait a minute. That doesn't mean you hoist a Palestinian flag and let these idiots take over your public universities so students can't go to school. It's like, so on the one hand, Biden is saying, well, we all protest. We're allowed to protest.
Yeah.
It just can't be violent.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to support the war for Israel anymore. In fact, I'm going to support Palestine. And we're going to tell Palestine that Israel's not going to attack them because we're not going to let them.
Well, it's Holocaust denial all over again, to where the Jewish students are now putting out videos showing the factual newsreel footage of what happened on October the 7th.
Yeah.
Because people are, we're just a few months away from
and
that.
You
and people are already saying, oh, they didn't rape any women. They didn't kill any babies. What are you talking about?
And not only did they do it, they documented it.
Yeah.
This isn't like I heard tell that somebody got raped. This is like, no, somebody got raped and we videotaped doing it. The guilty people videotaped it so they could shove it up your face or shove it in your face.
Here's an unclothed dead girl in the back of our pickup truck
with blood all over her backside.
Yeah, and here's great old video of that. Yeah, like we're really happy about that.
Right.
Okay. So to me, it's the Dachau ovens all over again. I mean, brutal. To me, there's just no difference. I mean, you're killing people because of their identity, because they're Jews, because they're.
But the ignorance of it is also astounding. So when these students, American students, are interviewed about why they're there, they can't answer.
No.
They have the couple tropes that they drop, the common sort of buzzwords.
Right.
But when they're really pushed, like what is Colombia doing? And they don't have an answer. They have no answer. They're just there because they hate the country. And why do they hate the country? Because they've been taught that now for a whole generation, that we're horrible, evil, awful people.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my rant.
That's a great piece of audio, and people can go find that on YouTube because there's video that goes with that.
There's video that goes with it, and I tell you what, it's what I go every now and then when I can't sleep at night, which is like every night. I put the headphones on, and I listen to stuff like this. Call me crazy, call me a geek, whatever.
Yeah.
But it gives you chills. Like, listen to this stuff because there's always a lesson that you can glean from it.
Yeah.
That you can apply today.
Yeah.
And that we're sort of living in this weird parallel of where we were back in the 30s and 40s, I think, back in 20s, 30s, and 40s, because there was this push for socialism, there was a push for government. People talk about the threat to democracy. The threat to democracy, where I come from, my vantage point, is the rise or the growing strength of the executive branch to sort of take over and do whatever they want without any elections or voting. Because anytime the executive branches or anytime the administrative branches act, it's just like an interpretation of some rule. We didn't vote. We have no idea what the hell's going on.
Yep.
And that becomes a law that you're prosecuted for.
Yep.
And that is the biggest threat to democracy right now, as far as I can tell.
It is.
And that was going on with FDR and his New Deal. That was going on with Woodrow Wilson before him. It's like these are the things where we think that it's almost, not to get biblical about it, but maybe a little bit. It's like whenever man sort of thinks that we can steer the ship on our own and we don't need the protections of the three branches of government anymore. We're smart enough to do this on our own.
Yeah.
It's like disaster.
Right.
Like looming disaster. And that's where we are right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because that's not going to be discussed in a debate because both candidates want that power.
They do. Right.
It almost feels like a boiling pot, of that frog in a boiling pot. It's
now, your prediction is there isn't going to be a debate.
I predict there won't be.
There's no debate.
Yeah.
I mean, is Biden going to show up for a debate? I don't think Biden's going to be a candidate. My prediction's still here.
That's true. That's true. I mean, he says he will. I think he's been on mic or camera saying, "Yeah, bring it on. I'll
take
talk
him back
to him."
behind the White House.
But that doesn't mean shit. I mean, that's just
Biden is not going to debate. Biden couldn't debate himself in the mirror, let alone debate Trump on stage.
And I don't think Trump's going to do. I mean, I think Trump would love to do it, but it's like it's almost a waste of time.
Trump is actually running a great campaign right now. He really is.
Yeah.
And I think it's maybe not on purpose. Like, he's got gag orders and he's tied up in this trial and he's got other
everything
stuff
is being
going on.
done to him is kind of in his favor.
He's distracted and he's like, he can't. So it's perfect.
Plus, they're letting the Biden thing play out, of which, from what I'm reading,
what he should have done last time.
The Democratic Party is very scared the Republicans are going to really use all this imagery against him, which is very true. I agree with the Democrats. I agree that, it's damaging.
Yeah, they will and they should.
I agree.
And I think, Trump can't really get out over his skis like he always does with saying outrageous things and promises that he can't keep, like, whatever, just hyperbole.
Yeah.
Because he's got these gag orders. And so what he's done is, like, he gets a chance to comment on things like abortion. And look, whatever your take is on this, Trump's taking a very political approach at it. Like, it's the state's issue. Arizona will fix their law.
Yeah.
That makes him sort of moderate in the room on
He's always
the
been
abortion
that way too, right?
Yeah.
That's never changed. If I understand his history, I don't think he's ever changed on that, has he? Yeah.
And he's doing the same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene and sort of this
He's even talking to Ron DeSantis lately.
He's talking to DeSantis. Like,
which is amazing.
He's playing a political campaign, maybe for the first time ever.
Yeah.
He
wasn't a politician before, but after 4 years in the White House, he is now.
And maybe he feels the danger of it. Like, and what's going on? I mean, this prosecution up there is lunacy. I mean, it is a kangaroo court.
Yeah. Terrible.
And we've debated about whether some of the other allegations have merit. I don't think this one does. I think he'll probably get convicted anyway. Because it's New York and it's fixed to the extent it can be, I guess. But the jurors don't like him, I guess is what I'm saying.
Probably not.
I don't mean it's actually rigged. I mean, it's like, you have a prosecutor who ran on the platform that I'm going to get Trump.
Yeah. Comes
up with a crime to get Trump. And now here we are.
Yeah.
It's amazing, as much as New Yorkers don't like him, why he calls that home base.
That's where he's from, I guess.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you stick around? Why don't you go somewhere?
Well, he effectively has. He's down in Florida for the most part, I think.
True.
But he's probably still has business. He's property there.
Yeah.
He relocated.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've hijacked the show long enough.
Good.
What do we got?
Just to tee off of the of another one of the Trump cases, the National Archives classified documents case, the judge down there has indefinitely postponed the trial proceedings because it has come out that the FBI mishandled the evidence. And in fact, Jack Smith filed a brief himself copying to their mishandling of the evidence. So,
well, it's more than that, though. So, look, this is a complicated case. I don't care what. Any time you're going to trial in a federal case, or even some of these bigger state court cases, there's a lot going on. And what you have to understand. Here, people are like, people that hate Trump want him prosecuted now, get it done, send him off, get this thing over with before the election, because that tells you why they're doing it, first of all, or tells you at least one of the motives, and they want it done. But having tried cases all over the place, like, you can't get a case like that ready to go to trial. There's way too many pretrial issues that just take a long time to resolve. And here you've got issues that are going to take review out of a court of appeals in the middle of while the trial is pending. Like, most of the time that doesn't happen. Most of the time I file pretrial motions and there's some legal issues. The trial judge will be able to resolve that. But every now and then you run into cases like Trump's myriad of cases where they have the issues themselves that get raised as sort of a subset of the bigger picture require appellate review while the case is going on. We call that interlocutory review, which means in the middle of the process. And most of the time in criminal cases, you don't get interlocutory review. So, if I file a motion to throw out evidence because of a Fourth Amendment problem, I don't get to appeal that before my trial. I have to have the trial, then appeal that. And so, every now and then you run into these issues like presidential immunity. You're like, well, we better solve this one.
Yeah, better figure that out.
So they get some review in the middle of the trial, and that delays things. And
both sides asked for that.
Both sides, yeah.
Mm.
And you have to understand, the one paramount concern is that the defendant gets a fair trial. That is the paramount concern. And if that takes more time to prepare, he should get it.
Yeah.
If that takes resolution of issues, they need to be resolved.
Yeah.
If he can't be down here using his resources to fight this case because he's in trial in another case out of state, the court's got to consider that in making the ultimate decisions on the case about whether this guy's getting a fair trial. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. I don't care if it's Biden. I don't care if it's Joe Blow from Alabama. It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a fair trial, and you can't force a defendant into a trial when they're not ready or able to defend the case.
So one of the spin-offs of this New York case in particular, and by that I mean the documents case that Alvin Bragg has brought, where Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, and Stormy Daniels, a.k.a. Stephanie Clifford, her former attorney, Michael Avenatti, who's currently in prison, I think for 12 years, disbarred, serving hard time for, I believe it was commingling and taking money out of his clients' accounts. So he has had a bit of Michael Avenatti, that is, has had a bit of a rebirth. He says he found Jesus and whatever.
I hope he has.
And now he wants to testify, or he's available to testify, has been making public statements, as has Cohen, that his former client, Stormy Daniels, is lying and has a hidden agenda, and he believes that she never had an affair with Trump, and that it was just a grab for publicity. So it brings up the question, mainly directed at Steve, because he's the attorney here on the panel, to what extent and under what conditions can an attorney testify against a former client? Because they are both doing that. Cohen, his former client being Trump, Avenatti, his former client being Stephanie Clifford, a.k.a. Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, so this is like so many things in law, it all depends. There's so many layers and levels and nuances to the analysis. But let me just go big picture here. We'll go mile high. There's something called the attorney-client privilege that most people have heard of but don't quite understand. And the attorney-client privilege applies when somebody tells me something. I'm the attorney, and I have a client who tells me something even before I'm actually paid or retained. So every now and then, like there's the movie with Susan Sarandon and the kid where he gives her $1 or a nickel or something. So I'm your lawyer. It doesn't even matter. Somebody calls me even looking for a prospective attorney. So, hey, I want you, I want to interview you to see if I want you to be my lawyer. The things they tell me are still privileged if it's done in a very specific way. And what that means is there's nobody else as part of the conversation. So if my client is telling me something and either I'm the only person there or the only other people there are part of my team, that is privileged, things that are said or written, okay? And I can't repeat those things. Now, here's what's interesting. So if a client comes in my office and they say, hey, look, can my mom come in or my dad come into the meeting? They're gonna be paying the bill. I will say no. And the mom and dad get upset because they're like, we're paying, we should be there. It's like, yeah, I know you're paying and you should be there. But if you're in the room and then I'm told something, it's not privileged anymore. So what protects that would be the next question. And that's part 2. And part 2 is something called a secret or a confidence. So things that privilege is things that are said or written. Confidences are things that I learned during the course and scope of my investigation or representation of the case. Could be things that, Norm, you tell me, even though I'm representing Brett, but you're a witness, so you tell me these things. In theory, those are protected by attorney-client confidences, and it's a broader, it's got a broader net. Then you would ask, how on earth can these lawyers possibly testify, or when can I be asked what my client said or what I learned? Well, the one easy one is if it helps my client, so I'm doing it as a result of representing my client. So if I interview Norm and I'm representing Brett, and Norm has very good things to say, well, I'm going to pick up the phone and say, hey, Mr. Prosecutor, guess what? I got me a great witness in Norm. Forget about all his blogs and forget about everything he said at Common Sense Ohio. He's still a great witness. and I can share that. Even though I learned it, I can share it because it helps my client. Another exception, and the one that we're talking about here, is called the crime fraud exception. And, we can be, so here's what the U.S. Supreme Court says about it. It is the purpose of the crime fraud exception to the attorney-client privilege to assure that the, quote, seal of secrecy, end quote, between lawyer and client does not extend to communications made for the purpose of getting advice for the commission of a fraud or a crime. So, if Brett's telling me that a bunch of fraudulent stuff and he's giving me information that he's going to use to go commit a future crime, then I can start to bust through the attorney-client privilege. Then you get into this other nuance about whether I have to or whether I can. All right. So, this comes up a lot in situations where Brett tells me, yes, I killed a child and I buried the child out in the bean field there on State Route 23 heading down to Circleville. And then, Brett is arrested later and he's convicted and maybe of a bunch of other crimes. This is a classic movie scenario. And the grieving parents just want to know where their kid is. Mm-hmm. And they start interviewing me. And I can't tell them. Right? Because it's already done. Right? It's not like, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. Now, it's a different scenario where if Brett says, yeah, the kid is buried underground, still alive, I might, there's probably a way around the rules that would permit me to do it, but maybe not require it. Because that's a crime or a fraud. He's still committing. So that's how these people are, in theory, getting around this.
Yeah. Well,
so for instance, if Stormy Daniels is lying, and if she's testifying about things that happened that Avenatti was part of during the representation, and it's fraudulent, then in theory he can get around the privilege.
Yeah, because I think what he got convicted of was stealing some of the $130,000 that she got paid. And, or some sort of advance on a book she wrote or something. And he took some of her money. So, he's going to probably wanting to testify not only for vengeance, but, he says because he knows of her attempts to break the law.
Well, and there's another one too. So if a client refuses to pay me or disputes the fee that I collected, I can then start divulging things I learned during the course and scope of my representation. And some of that could be going on there too.
Okay.
There could be, a lot of things could be true at once.
Okay. But generally, I mean, what's upsetting to me about, and you'll notice one is pro-Trump, one is anti-Trump. So, I pick those because, it balances out what I'm going to say. And I'm just, super uncomfortable with the idea that, it's kind of like, confessing if you're a Catholic to a priest or talking to your doctor about your health situation. It's one of these sacred relationships. Mm-hmm. You know, and a derogation of that it makes me very uncomfortable.
Well, it has potentially a chilling effect.
Yeah, like
if you think
like
about
I'm not going to tell my attorney everything.
Right,
Yeah.
because it could down the road can turn around and bite me in the butt.
And think about it. This is already a problem, even without this stuff. So if a client comes to me, this happens to me all the time. Clients tell me most of it. But, you know, for ego, for guilt, for even thinking they're trying to steer the ship of the defense a little bit, they hold something back. And I always tell my clients, I can protect you from everything I know about. Or if there's any chance of protecting you, I have to at least know about it. I cannot protect you from things that I don't know about.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, this comes up a lot where clients don't tell me everything, or it comes out like in the middle of trial.
I was going to say that's the last thing you want to happen is like, we don't want to be surprised in the middle of a trial defending you.
And it has happened to me time and time again.
That's something, a material fact comes up that you could have known about had they been
right. And look, sometimes, you know, the client's like, well, I figure if I told you that, then I was going to be convicted. Well, what did you think was going to happen if you didn't tell me?
Well, exactly, because both sides have the same information, other than they have the information and your client or your lawyer doesn't have it. Why would you not tell me?
Right.
Yeah.
And I always, you know, there are things that the clients haven't told me, and maybe it's worked out because you never know if they've told you everything.
Yeah.
I'd like to think most of the time they have, but usually I can smoke it out. Usually I spend enough time with my client across the table that I can smoke it out because the truth has a rhythm to it. And when the rhythm is all of a sudden a little bit off, you start to wonder why. If you skip a measure or two, using the musical analogy, it doesn't quite fit together.
Yeah. Well, I have some crime stories, but before I get to the crime story, a little piece of legislation that's, happily bipartisan. So this cell phone ban or limits, we're not clear what the rule is finally going to be, but it could be a ban in Ohio public schools. House Bill 250, it passed both the House and the Senate unanimously, which is like amazing. And it's on Governor DeWine's desk. He wanted this in his State of the State speech back in whatever it was, April or whenever he gave his State of the State. He wanted a legislation empowering the Department of Education to create model policy that then the 800 school districts in Ohio can adopt for themselves, either limiting in some way or outright banning K through 12 cell phone use in school.
And doesn't this already exist?
Well, it exists in parochial schools.
Why do we need a state law for this?
And that's where I'm going with it too.
Because some school boards testified in front of these committees that they feel like they don't have the authority in law to do this. So
no, they feel like they don't have the balls in law to do it.
Exactly, because it's there.
Some do.
Yeah.
Some do, to answer Brett.
If I'm a teacher,
most don't.
If I'm a teacher,
yeah,
and I perceive this as a problem,
yeah,
there's a big box on my desk,
right,
and every cell phone comes in and gets placed in the box before class, and they would hate me. That Mr. Palmer, he's a real dick.
That's the parochial school policy. So I can go back, 15 years with my two sons attending high school and grade school parochial. That was the policy. You could not have that phone on your phone.
It's a little different, though. You're going back.
Had to be in the locker.
I'm willing to accept that there's a difference in time, even in the last 10 years. Cell phones have become so ubiquitous that it's like, and they're small, and kids a lot of times are using them for their schoolwork because they forget their iPads or whatever they're supposed to have. So, but I'm with you. I would just say not in my time.
Yeah.
So why can't every teacher just do that?
Again,
because they're afraid.
Yeah,
we're afraid to use that one word sentence.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Because we already indoctrinated the kids to have iPads in their hands, so they're already glued to a screen.
Right.
And I guess I go to the opposite end too. It's like, okay, I think yes.
And didn't Apple even give those away at one point?
Pretty much, Apple was. Giving them so they
Google,
right.
The schools that gave Google, the schools that Apple gave. Yeah, exactly.
I think we're taking away a measure of security as well too, because if again, somebody storming a school, I think the more phones, the better.
Well, that's a thought.
I to a certain, there's a balance.
There's a thought there. Is it better to have every kid? So I would think that I'm going to come down on the side of I don't care. I want the cell phones in the box coming in.
Yeah, I mean,
because statistically, a school shooting is it's such an astronomical thing. And this is not to people are going to cut this out and say he thinks it never happened. But time and time again, you're going to have a distraction every single day. I wasn't allowed to chew gum in school.
I mean, Upper Arlington yesterday got a call.
They did. There was a big.
That's right. Yeah. And they sent police to reinforce the resource officers at every Upper Arlington location. Yep. They did not shut down the schools, and the kids did not go home. But scary thing.
Kids couldn't get in. So I had, my son goes to. He's away in the first part of the day, and then he comes back to school. And I was wondering if he was going to be able to get back in. By the time he would have had to come back, I think it was done. But there was a perimeter around the high school, even though the shooting threat was called into Hastings Middle School there in Reed Road on Upper Arlington, across from Wellington. And the message I got from the school was that there was a perimeter around all the schools. People couldn't come and go for a while. And look, appropriate response.
Well, in our day, if you got sick at school and you need to contact your parents,
you go make a phone
raise
call.
your hand. You walk to the principal's office and you use the school phone to call your.
Well,
parents.
this is another segue into a bigger topic, and it has to do again with the degradation of our democracy. And I'll link it all up. Just bear with me.
Yeah.
The parents, the kids, all the opponents of this are going to say, "What about an emergency?"
Right.
I once, believe it or not, went to a therapist talking about sort of like a professional life coach.
Sure.
Talking about my personal life and how I was so succumbed by my work. I can't let it go at night. It's like a 24/7 job. I represent people accused of crimes. That means I always got to be on call. And, and I was complaining, why don't you just put your cell phone in the kitchen drawer when you get home and turn it off? I was like, yeah, but what if there's an emergency? And he just said, when's the last time there's a real emergency in your life? I was like, it took me a minute to figure that out.
Yeah. Right.
And it's that you couldn't handle some other way.
Right.
And, but we have redefined emergency to fit whatever we want to do at the moment.
True.
And and the one of the big things that emerged during COVID with this notion of emergency power, and we basically created an emergency out of everything. And our kids are taught that everything's an emergency. If they need to be able to call somebody to help them fix it. I think I became a capable adult human male because I had to figure out emergencies on my own.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah. So I had a bad day at school. I didn't get to text my mom and say, Joey said I was a no good, rotten idiot.
The cell phone thing, according to the testimony I read, on the article that prompted me to bring this, was teachers saying and administrators saying the corrosive effect of social media in particular in a school where somebody gets, or creates with AI a photo of another student doing something or dressed in a certain way or undressed or whatever. Yeah. And then that gets shipped around in real time.
Whether the phone's at school or that happens after school, I think those things, it's a non sequitur a little bit, or one doesn't necessarily eliminate the other.
But if you don't get to amp it up while you're there at school, it's less, arguably.
Maybe.
And there, Jordan Peterson has said, is he a psychologist?
Yeah.
Or psychiatrist?
Mm-hmm.
Psychologist. He has said that the largest mass brain research project that we've ever launched is allowing our children to be immersed in social media. There's
no equivalent to this.
It's the biggest experiment with no controls, and really parents basically oblivious to the downsides of social media.
Right, me included. It's look,
the kids are just they're suicides and
as an adult,
terrible things.
I have made a choice not to engage in social media. Now, I'll scroll through Facebook here or there, or if we're doing stuff for work or our show.
Yeah.
But I don't even post pictures of my family. I don't post, I don't.
Yeah,
and there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
When I first, and I resisted Facebook probably I don't need that stupid Facebook. And, or Instagram or all those.
Yeah.
But when I started, there was a time that I started to post some stuff, and I found myself looking regularly for likes and approval.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew immediately, this isn't good.
Well, Peterson says that's a dopamine thing.
It is.
Yeah.
Looking back, that's exactly what it was.
That when you get these likes or when you get the thumbs up, it's a
And
little
it's
shot.
meaningless.
And so kids pursue that all day long.
Right.
They want to be liked and admired.
But my point is, like, I recognize that as an adult.
Yeah. And it's addictive.
And I had studied a lot of addictive behaviors in my career and personally and elsewhere. It's like, so I recognize that as a huge, huge danger zone.
Yeah. And think of that. Their brains are undeveloped. They're little kids.
That's right. So seeking approval from the vast, unspoken, like, ether, like, there is no end to it. There's no end to it. You can continue to post and continue to get it, and you never learn how to function without it. So I agree, but I don't think banning cell phones in schools addresses that at all. I think that's a complete nonsense.
Yeah, because I saw a quote from Houston or something, and he's mentioned this a couple of times. And once when he was doing the tour about the cell phones, and he was stopped at a Dublin school, it's like him saying government needs to help parents.
It makes me choke.
And I saw that. I'm probably misquoting it a little bit.
You're sending that my way because you know how much that irks me.
I saw that.
That's
but
the Hillary,
essence,
it takes a village
but
bullshit.
In essence, what he was, and he said that a couple of times, going, okay, great, this isn't an easy fix. Why aren't you? If you're going to do that, let's be helping parents get their kids to school. Do the whole gamut.
It's really
versus,
simple. If you're the school, like, this is like, I don't need the government's help at all with my kids.
It really
in fact,
bothered me.
It only gets in the way.
Yeah.
It only gets in the way.
And that's why I don't necessarily.
I'd like a crash report.
I think the power's already there in
the
the school systems. I just do.
So Steve,
or have the balls to do it.
I would just argue with you on this aspect that by banning it at school, with social media being in mind, is I think the buzz is way bigger when somebody posts something live during school hours, because that causes a reaction
fair enough.
In real time.
But I would tell you this.
Like, yo, look at my shoes.
Sure.
I just got $500 Trump shoes.
We don't need a state law for this.
No, but
just if the school just needs to say, you can't have your cell phones.
Yeah, but public schools operate by virtue of
fine.
You know what I'm saying?
Whatever.
Yeah, but they need a sanction.
Even if that's true, even if what you said is true, there's an amplification of it. That's a matter of degree. It's not going to stop it. And
no,
it
may help.
It's weak tea to use as justification for such a law. Well, I think there are better reasons for the law they could use. The one you just mentioned is that schools don't feel like they have the authority to do it themselves, so we're going to ban it. That's all you need to say.
Yeah.
But to say that that's somehow going to curb social media, and then to tie it with this notion that the parents need help to be able to say no to this.
Well, it'll curb it for 6 hours. And the most pernicious 6 hours.
And then when are the kid? So here's the other thing. What are they going to do? Send kids through metal detectors?
Well, I guess, it's like anything else. If they find drugs on you at school.
You're going to search kids for, because what I'm going to do, if I'm going to post something on social media, it's like grabbing a cigarette at lunchtime. I'm going to go in the bathroom and do it.
Right.
So it's not going to stop it. It's like saying, it's like requiring FFLs for private gun purchases.
Well, you'll have kids narc each other out. It'll happen.
Yeah.
So,
that's going to have its own chaos.
I would like to point out the huge irony, the 800-pound elephant.
The more I think about this, the more absurd it is. Anyway,
that DeWine, he wants a cell phone policy ban or limits. He can see his way to that to protect children, but he couldn't see his way to signing a bill that made illegal gender surgery. I mean, you can cut off your breasts or your penis. And transition as a 10-year-old, but you can't take a phone to school.
It's perfectly consistent with what Brett said. The parents need help. And when the government...
Well, not government help. They need psychological help from professionals.
But I agree with that. Actually, I don't even agree with that. The parents need help, so says... Was it who said that? Husted?
Husted.
The parents need help. That's what these people think, that the government is somehow better at it than the parents. What's happened is then the government gets to take control over things like whether you as a parent should permit your kid to have his genitals cut off or added to or whatever. And so that's all the same logic, right? So the parents need help. They don't know that their kid should be a female and we should let him cut his penis off. So we're going to intervene in that and help the parent make that decision. This is what happens when Big Brother takes over. And I'm telling you right now, it is we have created not only generations of weak kids, now we're creating generations of weak parents who don't know how to say no.
I would say this is
and are shamed, in fact, shamed for it.
Or look to the government for the answer.
So, Steve, I would say there are many cases where, because we have feckless, weak, non-Winston Churchill parents anymore, that we do need government to create guardrails. So we have things like kids can't smoke, they can't get tattoos, they can't vote, they can't sign contracts, they can't do
not all those things are equal to me.
Okay.
So voting.
Okay.
I mean, look, if I'm a parent, my kid wants to get a tattoo.
But you almost are saying that we shouldn't be able to pass a law that says parents can't sanction a gender reassignment surgically of their minor students, of their minor children. And I'm all in favor of a law like that. But you seem to be saying you think that's over control by the government.
I think it has to be discussed. When the government intervenes into the parent-child relationship, and it has to be discussed. Now, it may be a matter of degree, because, look, I agree that no parent should be letting their kid cut off his genitals and go through gender assignment surgery.
So
I think there's a better way around it.
So that's a legislation that DeWine vetoed.
Is it different for you?
And they overrode him.
Is it different for you if it's a private procedure? So to me, it's like we've got this so inextricably linked to public health care that I'm paying for it as a, it's like.
Oh, no, it means no difference to me.
It makes no difference
as
to
far
you.
as
It should just be outlawed.
Yes.
Look,
if you can't give a minor a tattoo, you can't take his penis off.
Well, I think you should be able to give your minor a tattoo.
Okay.
Or at least there shouldn't be a law saying you can't. I'm not saying that like letting the government control that.
The kid,
it's a slippery slope.
The kid can't make an adult decision when he's a kid.
And it's
just that simple.
And I wouldn't let my kid make the decision as a parent. So look, I'm with you in spirit on all of this. Okay. But I think it also warrants a discussion about the exercise and origin of the government power to do these things. Okay. And certainly it's better at the state level because the state has inherent police power than it is at the federal level. But it is a discussion that needs to happen. And the problem is exactly what we're talking about. Just because we made this law, then we can make another one, and then we can make another one, and then we can make another one. Where does it stop? Because sooner or later, the power to make that law gets turned on you for things you don't like.
Okay, the answer is it stops at adulthood. After adulthood, you can cut your penis off.
Well, it's the same power that says
there has to be a bright line.
It's the same power that says the government can say you can't stop the kid from cutting his penis off. It's the same exercise of power.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's what bothers me.
So I like laws where you get certain rights. I'm talking about laws involving children. You get certain rights at a certain age, and I think that's totally appropriate.
Yeah, I'm not. Like I said, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, other than to say there has to be a careful discussion. You can't just say we're going to pass that law. You have to say, should we pass that law? And why are we passing that law? Just because we disagree. Then you have to say, well, if we give the government the authority to pass this law, then what's next? And how do we stop that? What is the standard that we view this stuff with? And let's be cautious, because I think now we've created this scenario where it's so easy to just say, well, the government will ban it. And it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't stop it, because banning cell phones isn't going to prevent cell phones at school. It's just going to drive them underground.
But what's the next step? Saying, okay, which has already been discussed, you can't wear that to school.
Yeah, well, dress codes. See, to me, dress codes are different.
Oh, really? Okay.
Dress codes are handled at the school level.
Oh, right. And they stop. What I'm saying is the overreach. Okay, so the government says you can't have, so the government's saying, the state comes in and says, okay, you can't wear that. You have to wear.
I would be very suspicious if there were a state level law that says kids have to wear XYZ to school or can't wear XYZ to school,
Steve,
and that were not exercised at the school level.
I think you're think you're conflating, if you will. I don't mean this in terms of a logical thing, but I think you're somewhat reacting to how such bans work on adults. The libertarian in you is coming out. I'm very sympathetic with that. but I think children require the protection of the state because there are bad parents. There are dumb parents. There are parents who are so goofy and so dumb. And now there's children who are now in their 20s who regret what their parents decided for them.
I understand, but
when
now
they were
protecting-
minors.
I agree.
A girl who no longer has her breasts.
Protecting the children is now showing up with the opposite impact of what you're talking about. So now under, say there's an abuse, neglect, dependent, this is happening in California, for instance.
How is
If your
protecting the kid
If
from...
your kid,
Yeah.
well, because you and I, not you and I, you and California disagree on what's right for the kids. So if you don't impose, or if you don't permit your kid to undergo this transgender treatment, then they're going to find you, or they're going to say the kid is either being abused, neglected, or dependent upon the state for care.
Yeah, so that's why the Ohio law makes so much sense. It takes that argument completely off the table because you can't make that decision for your kid.
But all right, so
under
look,
the law.
that's why I say, in spirit, I love it. I love it. But we've let the government in so tightly.
So you
The
think
camel
there ought
is
to
in
be
the-
a little wiggle room
The camel is in the tent.
where somebody comes home, says, Daddy, I want to be a girl, and Daddy can decide that with his wife, they can decide to let a 10-year-old boy get surgery?
The question I am grappling with is, what's the government power to say no to that, and how can that power later be used in a different way that I don't like?
Okay.
So I don't think that there. Look, I agree with you 100%. I can vision no circumstance where a kid should have gender changing surgery
Yeah.
as a
Right.
minor.
And so you're worried about
so,
some
yes, Norm,
unnamed thing down
I will
the
say
road,
this:
but-
I am totally fine with a law prohibiting that.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with it.
Okay.
It has to come with a discussion about what's next when the law swings back the other way, where now it's required if your kid wants it.
Well, we can talk about that.
Well, that's the problem,
Yeah,
right?
so we can have that
So
discussion.
that's what's going on. The opposite of that is going on. So look,
Well, not with me in California.
It
I don't
seems
know
to
where,
me. It
I don't
seems
know
to
where you
me
got
the
that.
better focus is to say, why are parents even thinking this is a good idea?
Right.
Like really,
Yeah.
why is this a good idea to anybody?
Right.
And
well, they need psychological help. That's all I can say.
That certainly needs to be part of the process of
but
okay,
the
if
psychologists are promoting this nonsense.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
if there's
some
some
are.
dysphoria,
So, a lot of them are.
Some are,
Yeah,
and,
right.
and some aren't.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
a lot of them are.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take my kid to Children's Hospital with that problem right now. No chance in hell.
Well, it's illegal now. I mean, Ohio passed a law. You can't do it.
Children's Hospital can't do the surgery, but
That's
they can
right.
do the
Oh.
psychology.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
Probably.
yeah,
Probably.
Yeah, because we're in such a murky waters with this right now at the beginning stages of it. You don't know
So, yeah,
the best
right.
place to go to
So
help
look,
your child.
let
you
me
know,
be
yeah,
clear.
You know,
I am arguing academically. I do not favor any kid getting gender transition surgery. And I suppose if Ohio law prohibits it, I'm in favor of that. But
Yeah.
I'm always very suspicious of government involvement in personal lives.
That's good. We should be.
Okay.
We should be
Yeah,
suspicious.
yeah.
So
because the same sword can be turned on you.
let's talk about a different kind of rule, and this is kind of crazy. The new NFL. I mean, we talked about the tackling thing, but did you guys hear that they have a new rule, a whole different procedure on kickoffs?
I think I heard something about
Yeah,
this.
we talked
but
about this, didn't we?
No, not the kickoffs.
maybe not
we
the
talked
kick-
about the tackling.
the tackling. Okay.
The kickoffs.
Yeah, I knew about the kickoffs.
They're going to be
Yeah.
5 yards from each other.
Yeah.
Right? If the kicker kicks, so both teams will be lining up 5 yards from each other on the receiver's 30-yard line.
So the kick happens back at the where's the kick happen at the kickoff,
35.
the 35, and then
Right.
so the kicker's way back, and then the line is up there.
The line. So the receiving team's on the 30-yard line. The kicking team is on the 35-yard line of the receiver
receiving
side
team,
of the
yeah.
field. If the ball goes into the end zone on a fly, it comes back out to the 40.
That's been that way for a while now.
If I thought it was,
In college, I think. In college, I
Yeah.
think it's coming out to
yeah.
Okay.
So
or
now
maybe not. It's the 40. It goes all the way to the 40.
40. It goes all the way to the 40.
So they're encouraging actually a
Oh,
return.
if it goes out of bounds, it goes all the way to 40.
Oh, an out of bounds
Yeah,
kick. That's
yeah.
different.
If
If it goes through the end zone, it's a touchback to the 20, right?
If it rolls into the end zone, okay, because the receiving team did not pick it up, it comes back out to the 20. If it flies into the end zone, it comes back to the 30, not the 40. Where it goes to the 40 is if they kick it out of bounds.
So they're trying to encourage a return.
Yes, they're hoping there would be more return scores.
Yeah.
And less of this hyper running at each other.
I don't necessarily disagree with this rule.
Okay.
Look, I mean, these
I'm
kind of
just
rules,
saying it's a.
No.
I'm just bringing up that there is a change.
These kind of rules are always hard to swallow because it's a change from what we're used to.
Yeah.
No onside kick unless you declare that you're doing it openly.
Which is
you can only do it in the fourth quarter, and you have to be losing.
That I heard. Okay.
So the onside kick thing is totally different.
I don't like that.
Yeah, because that's such a great tricky play.
Having played college football and having been on kickoff team, I was injured twice, pretty substantially on kickoff. Yeah. I was like the attack guy. My job was to stand right next to the kicker. I didn't have to stay in my lane. My job was just to go get the football. They're like, you go get that football as fast as and fast as you can. And I was pretty fast, and I could just go hit. And I got whacked in the head a few times.
So to that end,
I got a stinger that never went away to this day.
Neither team is allowed to leave their spots on the line until the ball either hits the field or is caught by the receivers.
Okay.
So they're not allowed to start
That's
running.
Going to be difficult to perceive and enforce.
Wow.
They're going to have to hold themselves
that's
at least 1 foot on that line.
So it's just a change. We'll see how it plays
And there's
out.
no fair catch.
Right, so they're encouraging returns.
With that, yeah.
They're encouraging
there is no
returns.
fair catch.
So it might be fun.
Yeah.
I still say we go back to leather helmets.
Well, look, I'm with you. I'm not. I don't disagree.
People think that's crazy, but it's like
I don't
power
disagree.
brakes versus manual brakes.
Yep. When you have the perception of protection like that,
yes,
you're willing to do things that cause damage. It's like boxers with bigger gloves. It still does damage. It just does it a little.
I don't know. Facetiously, but at the same time, it's like think about the process of that.
It's like getting beaten up by a phone book.
Right.
The rule passed 29-3 amongst the owners. The dissenting owners were the Raiders, Packers, and 49ers. And the rule change took 9.5 pages.
Interesting.
Wow.
So those special teams coaches, man, they got a lot of work to do this.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they're going to have to retrain the brains.
Well, they got to even figure out how it's going to go. So they're going to have to just line people up and say, "How is this going to work?"
Exactly.
Right.
Let's just play this out 100 times.
It's
and
a big change.
And then how does it evolve into NC2A, into high school?
Yeah.
If you think about it, right? It has to, right?
Yeah, this is.
It's a totally different mindset walking onto a pro field.
And like I said, I don't necessarily disagree with this.
That's interesting.
I don't understand the onside kick part of it, but this is. I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, I understand there's an onside kick ramification because if you're lined up on the 30 and the kicker's on your own 35, then you can't really do an onside kick so everybody knows what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I mean, it basically takes the onside kick out of the game.
I think we're going to get to a point. With these rules, clearly some of this is to lessen the violence and the injuries, but I think we're going to get to the point where probably a tag on the quarterback will be enough to tackle him.
You may be right.
If you just touch the other quarterback, he's down.
Well, Brett, I think you're on. I've said this about football for years. As the equipment evolves and creates more protection, you're not protecting people. What you're really doing is enhancing the force of the impact.
Yeah. Or you're going to get NFL that the guys that love the NFL and the purists are going to go, I'm watching rugby. Screw it. Screw it. I'm watching rugby. Yeah, exactly.
Could be, man.
So I don't know if you guys heard this, that there is a new cruise line set up to sail in from Florida next year called the Nude Cruise.
Oh, for God's sake.
So the big nude boat cruise, which allows passengers to bear all, yes, even at the buffet.
Oh, God. Jesus.
At the buffet is set to sail. Yeah.
Wasn't there National Nude Gardening Day last week?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
exactly. So it ranges. The rates for an inside cabin start at $2,000 and then stretch all the way to $33,000 for the top room on the ship. A Haven 3-bedroom garden villa. You know what that is?
Yeah,
the sex penthouse. Exactly.
I could barely afford it.
But when it said you could go to the buffet nude, that I have any interest at all, but I saw that going, how in the hell can they do that?
Oh, God.
How can you go to the buffet nude.
Dude.
I mean, I can just envision a bunch of saggy.
Oh my God!
Come on.
You think it's going to be great, but
Horrible.
No, we're not.
No.
Right.
It ain't going to be
this
that.
This isn't a Playboy cruise.
No,
right?
the sausages in the
No.
buffet may look better than what's hanging around. Exactly.
Well,
Or the watermelons or the melons in the buffet is going to look better than what's walking around. Leave it there. I saw that going, oh my God.
No. I have to throw this out. I'm very distraught, like a lot of ex-volunteers and participant with the Boy Scouts of America.
I saw
I
this.
saw that.
So they're now calling themselves Scouting America,
Americans,
and I go back to why are the Boy Scouts bankrupt, and why, as an organization, are they at like a third of what the membership used to be? And there's all these new groups. The Mormons created their own Boy Scout organization.
Okay.
And it's because of sex scandals. And the sex scandals were not between the den mothers and the boys. It was between pedophile gay guys and the boys, adult leaders mainly.
Look,
And hey,
I think there's
There
more.
are
I think there's more to the decline than that. I think there's a lot more to the decline.
well, it's the
than
sex
that.
scandals that drove this.
It's tens of thousands of
look,
suits, isn't it?
So
Is
what
that
they
the number?
did, Steve, in their wokeness, right? Instead of addressing the problem of pedophilia, whether it's heterosexual or gay, instead of addressing screening of adult volunteers and rules preventing gay men camping with boys,
Well, look, we had this debate years ago.
Right, but now here's
I
the
don't-
fruition.
Look, I don't think because you're a gay man, you shouldn't be able to be in the Boy Scouts.
I didn't say that. I said camping.
I don't think these should be prevented from camping because I think
definitely.
being a gay man attracted to another fully adult male is different than being a gay man attracted to kids.
So
I think those are two different things.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I got you. But except now you're going to have to figure out who they're attracted to.
If you're going to endeavor to do it, then you have to endeavor to do it. Look, a pedophile doesn't have to be a gay
So
man.
let me ask you this, dude. So are you in favor of heterosexual, fully grown men camping with little girls?
It happens.
It does
In
not
the
happen.
Indian guys or whatever. Or what's
It does not happen.
I have a buddy that went on camping trips with their daughters.
There's no way he camped in the same campground with little girls. There's no way. It's not
The
permitted.
Indian princesses or whatever it was. Yeah, he did it.
Wow.
They would go on overnight camping trips.
Well, I was going to say
It flies in the face of the sex scandals.
Well, it's the filtering that you got to figure out. I guess I don't know. Yeah. Not every guy's a pedophile though. That's the thing. Or
Right.
would
Just
go
because
after a
you're
young
gay,
girl.
you're not a
I don't know,
pedophile.
but I
Dude.
see your point though. But it's
Dude.
no. I mean,
okay, here's a really bright filter. Those
I
who
wouldn't want to be there doing it though. I would not
those
want to
who
be
are
there. But
attracted to members of the same sex, of either the same sex or the opposite sex. If you're attracted to the children that you're taking on the camp out, if you're attracted to that gender, not necessarily the children, but just to that gender. So I'm attracted to women. Somebody who's gay may be attracted to men. Okay, neither of us should be going on a camp out overnight in the same camping area.
I disagree with this.
Oh,
I think
man.
I
Wow.
think the vast majority of fathers and daughters can go on a camping trip without any concerns at all. The problem with pedophilia
Well,
is
they're
that-
not attacking their daughters.
Well, they're daughters' friends then.
Yeah.
The problem with pedophilia is that people don't always know, and it's not, it's this.
That's right.
It's
Right,
this creepiness. So,
So why did the
so you're
Boy Scout?
creating
Why did they have that rule then for all those years?
What was the rule?
The rule was you couldn't be a gay scoutmaster and go on a camp out.
I don't know why they had the rule. You'd have to ask the Boy
Well,
Scouts.
clearly because they didn't want gay scoutmasters at nighttime being associated with boys,
And
because they're attracted to men.
So again, that kind of
and
rule,
boys are ungrown men.
that kind of rule.
yeah.
I don't think that rule is effective at all. I'm just trying to think this through. So if I'm a gay man and I'm outwardly gay and I have a husband and we are raising a son.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would be fair to say I can't go on the scouting trip because I happen to be a gay man. Because I think it's an equally, if not more plausible scenario that I'm outwardly a heterosexual man married, but I'm also a creepy pedophile that likes to creep on kids, particularly boys. I don't think there's any way to discern that. So I don't think one is associated with the other. And I think, And really what you're going to get is gay men going on these trips that aren't going to tell anybody they're gay, so you're not going to know anyway.
Steve, the sex scandals are about gay pedophilia. That's what it is. That's what that's what drove them into bankruptcy.
But you're taking half of that.
It's the same
and
as
making
the
it
church.
all of it. So just because you're gay doesn't mean you're a pedophile.
No, it doesn't. But you have lots of lines like that, right? So just because I'm a convicted felon, right?
So if I'm
doesn't
a pedophile,
mean I'm going to use a gun to kill somebody. But we have that law.
If I'm a pedophile attracted to young boys, I'm not going to disclose that I'm gay, and I'm going to find a way to creep into it no matter what. I've represented plenty of them, and that's what they do.
Yeah. Right.
So the rule is a political rule. It's not going to stop it.
Well, I don't think it's a political rule.
I
think it's a child safety.
It's a theater rule.
I
understand what they're trying to do, but it's going to be ineffective.
No, the wokeness undid it. They have no such rule. That's my point. That's my point.
I think the wokeness. I think there's something else going on. I think the wokeness is getting to a point where they're going to say pedophilia. Wow, that's just how you were born. You know that you should.
Oh, for sure.
The
You're talking about the Man-Boy Love Association, the NAMBLA.
Yeah,
yeah.
The wokeness
they've been trying to normalize pedophilia.
It's trying to normalize it.
Absolutely.
Now, and that's a different scenario, which obviously is a horrible scenario because it's not normal.
Well, let's walk through the fact pattern. The fact is that the Boy Scouts are bankrupt in large part, almost completely due to sex scandal lawsuits involving man-on-boy sex. Okay?
I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, that is true.
I think there's just a general lack of interest in Boy Scouts, too.
No, let's stipulate that that's what it is, because that is what it is.
I'm not going to stipulate
Brett
that.
Thousands of cases.
I think, well, sure, but look, I didn't get involved in scouting. I went to a couple meetings and I looked around. I thought it was all a little bit weird, and I didn't do it.
Okay.
So I didn't even think about sex scandals.
Yeah.
Well,
we didn't either when Hayden's age too.
The Mormon Church created its own scouting operation. They took about a third of the scouts with them when they did that. And then scouts lost more because they've had to sell campgrounds. In order to finance these losses that they've suffered in these sex predator cases, they are a shadow of the organization. And the two guys who really kicked the whole thing off was Bob Gates and Rex Tillerson when they were on the board and the presidency of Boy Scouts. They're the ones that changed the policy to allow gay scoutmasters to go on campouts. So when you've got a scandal involving man-on-boy sex, and then your reaction to it is to formalize.
Couldn't it be something else, though? Couldn't it be?
But it's not, Steve. This is what the cases are about.
No, I know what the cases are about.
Okay.
But we're talking about the purpose or the reasons people aren't getting involved in scouting. So look.
Well, I won't get involved now.
Scouting was a very traditional thing, right? Sort of a Christian thing, right? It was based on Judeo-Christian values of scouting, right? Yeah. So now all of a sudden, if you're going to allow gay people there, your Christian families are going to say, wait a minute.
That's not the organization I signed up for.
That's not what I signed up for. Their value structure has changed.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what I don't know what turned me off by scouts or whatever it is, but I don't think one is necessary. Are they related? Maybe, but I don't think they're as related as you think.
Well, to take this argument,
I think they have changed their value system to the point where parents who would be interested in getting involved in scouts are no longer interested in getting involved in it, and that's what they're going with their church instead.
Yeah, to color such a policy as anti-gay is ridiculous, in my opinion. If I was gay and I had a son, I would not want my son going on campouts with a gay scoutmaster because I don't know the guy. I don't know if he's really just interested in men or if he's also interested in boys. And so
that wouldn't bother me as much.
It's not a gay, anti-gay thing.
I get it. No,
it's an attractiveness thing, whether it's heterosexual
coming the
or
other
gay.
way. Coming the other way, it was pitched that way. So we're on the same page there.
Okay.
But as far as like if there's a guy who's outwardly gay that's at the scouting camp, that wouldn't bother me so much. I'm worried about the guy who's not outwardly gay, who's creeping around.
Obviously.
So what bothers me more about that is the scouts changed their value structure and they changed their system of values. And the people who were attracted to scouts before aren't anymore.
So Steve, it
was supposed to be a family Christian environment, and it's not anymore because they opened it up to all these weird things.
So let's analogize.
I think from the perspective of the families.
You and I are both strong Second Amendment advocates. we both believe people should be able to walk around with a legally obtained gun, either displayed or not displayed, concealed or not concealed. We both think that. At least I think you think that. You could disagree. So obviously you and I are much more concerned about those citizens that would use that gun for a nefarious purpose. I get you. I mean, what you're saying makes common sense. Obviously, I'm more worried about that. But where I can take at least some of the predators off the table is to take the ones that acknowledge that they're attracted to the same sex that they're taking camping. And that wouldn't be men taking girls on campouts. That would be women taking boys on campouts. That would be.
Well, how about basketball coaches?
But how do you filter that, though?
Well, I'm talking about campouts.
Okay, but how do you filter that, though? How do you stop them from going? What's the parameters?
Only when they acknowledge, and it's.
So you have the chilling effect, and they go and they don't tell you. Then.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
you have a don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
Right.
To me.
But I would have an ask and tell policy. I would simply say, listen, you are welcome to be a gay scoutmaster all day long. You can hold the meetings, you can hold the promotions, you can teach, you can be a merit badge advisor. We are not grossed out or upset or in any way thinking your gayness is a problem. It is the sexual attraction to the opposite sex. Whether it's a boy or girl, whether it's a mom or dad.
Hold on.
Okay.
Are you attracted to young girls?
No.
I'm not either.
However,
I'm attracted to fully grown women.
there are tens of thousands of rapists in prison that are
But
attracted to young girls.
You asked and you told, so you would be allowed to, but you don't want to. You could be a scoutmaster or go on a camping trip with young girls.
If a scoutmaster lies and says, no, I'm only attracted to women.
Right, the creepers are going to go do what they're going to do. All right, so I get
that's
it.
all I'm saying.
I think there's a bigger problem with the scouts. The bigger problem with the scouts is
they're not policing themselves either very
is that
well.
they have permitted this degradation of the value system that made the scouts attractive to the traditional American family.
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, one of the problems is letting gays
that's part of it.
Take boys into the woods.
That's part of it.
And they didn't police it very well, knowing that, that opened the door for that to happen. Yes.
And neither did the Catholic Church.
So,
right. Yeah.
And look, maybe it's like this.
And the reaction to both is to let more in.
And maybe one begat the other. So I'm a normal man with a normal American family.
Yeah.
And, I don't, for whatever reason, my kids are involved in football, they're involved in baseball, they're involved in stuff. So I don't really have time for scouts. So now who's going?
Well, and you make up a good point because there are a lot of other opportunities in scouts to do, but sports, namely soccer.
Well,
my God,
so now
how much soccer's grown.
So
That's
now
true.
who's going into scouting? It's like you've eliminated, like our society has sort of eliminated that as an interesting or an attractive option for our kids.
True.
And it just through the other problems. So now it's like, you
I don't know
can
about
say
that.
this
because you choose a sport.
It sounds like you don't know a lot about traditional scouting. They went on the Appalachian Trail for 10 days. Look,
I got it, but
they
I didn't get involved in that
for
because
2
my
weeks.
kids were involved in other sports.
Well, that's
there's lots of
and when you are involved in other sports, that's an obligation.
You can only pick so many. Now we have travel volleyball and travel softball and travel baseball.
Looking
at
kids
are gone
looking
all
at
summer.
what could be the problems.
And Ohio State fired a female basketball coach because she predated on the girls on her team. And I won't name a name, but we all know who it is. And she was let go from Ohio State. So that was a homosexual attraction by a grown woman to young women under her aegis. And so I'm just saying, if that happens,
it's a little different. We're talking about college age. Versus,
that's right.
It's a lot different.
It is. That means that she bore even less pressure than an adult would to a minor child on a campus.
And it's a crime, right? So look, anyway, all right. I think we're up against the clock here. So
J.D. Vance, big talk about him being vice president candidate. He claimed on the Glenn Beck show. I read that Trump and him have never talked about that, but he's in the mix.
Well, I thought he interviewed with him down Did Trump go through like an interview process with some people?
Did
I
not talk.
bet maybe I misunderstood what he did. Okay, maybe he did.
According to Vance,
interesting. Oh,
he talked, but not about vice presidency.
That's right.
Okay. Oh,
that's right.
Okay.
So we never mentioned the word vice president.
That's right.
We're going to talk about whether you'd be a good vice president.
They went through like an interview process.
That's what he's saying.
Okay.
We've got this case, very unfortunate. This defensive back, former with Ohio State, Marcus Williamson, arrested. They got a warrant, put a GPS tracker on his vehicle. The detectives followed him to his 9th alleged bank robbery and took him down there.
That's too bad.
One note implied he had a gun. He's only 25 years old.
It's like Maurice Claret years. Remember
yes,
that? Yeah.
it is. It rings that bell.
Man.
And then I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I just think this is weird. So I saw a new dating site has popped up. It came up on what was I watching? I think Netflix. I was watching Netflix, and a dating site came up called BLK, and it's a black exclusive dating site, and it bothered me.
Why?
Well, because I think the inclination will be now they have a white one, and that bothers me.
Why?
Why can't we just have a dating site that specifies the look that you are looking for?
Well, what's the difference? So if say I've got one dating site that says I'm going to go click on black only within the dating site, it's the same thing.
Yes, that's right.
But with that doesn't bother you as much?
It kind of bothers me. I can't put my finger on why it bothers me.
If I'm not attracted to black folks, or if I'm not attracted to Asian folks, or maybe I'm attracted to something, maybe I like Eastern, have at it.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I think that's one of the benefits of dating sites. You can pick who you're attracted to and find a whole pool of them.
Yeah, and you should. Yeah, there should not be a Title IX or whatever, a Title VI on. Dating.
Black, white, whatever floats your boat, man.
But it just I don't know. It took me back that there's an official site that's racial.
Maybe there's an interracial only dating site. It doesn't make any difference to me. Go date who you want to date. I don't care.
Yeah, because it's really doing no harm, no foul.
I don't care, except that it bothers me that there's a racially exclusive site. That bothers me. I can't really. I can't.
Don't.
Makes me feel
well. Okay, so yeah, so
it makes me feel.
So if there was a site called WHT and it's whites only,
people would freak out, Steve,
and they'd be wrong.
And they would be wrong, exactly.
And they'd be wrong. And I would defend to the death the right for a white only dating site to exist. I mean,
wow.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Look, if I'm not attracted, if I'm only attracted to white folks of a certain, maybe how about white brunettes?
Yeah.
Or blondes only.
I can't explain it.
Yeah.
It repulses me somehow.
But human nature, it's like
the idea for racially, I would feel the same way if it was Hispanic or Eskimo, or Irish only.
I don't fault somebody if they're only attracted to black folks. I don't fault them if they're only attracted to white folks.
I don't fault
Even
them.
if you're black and you're attracted to white, or white and you're attracted to black.
Well, some people are only attracted to blondes.
Some people.
I mean,
like
it
blondes.
can go down to that. I mean,
I guess
I happen to like brunettes.
I guess to articulate it, what probably is at the basis of my repulsion is that somebody's making money. At the end of the day, somebody is making money off of a racially tinged site, and that bothers
I guess I don't because I recognize the reality of it.
Because then why not have a blacks only editors association or lawyers association?
They do.
Yeah, and that bothers me.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
What bothers me about it is you've already brought it up. If there were a whites only, then people would be up in arms. But so if you're going to have one, then you have to at least express that there's the basis to have another.
Yeah, like we've had the
Asians law group or the black law group. Or
we've had the FOP guy.
The women's
here.
law. There's a women's bar auxiliary. There's a women's bar association. I mean, it doesn't make any difference to me.
Like we had the FOP guy here for Columbus, for the and I asked him about why is there a black police officer's FOP kind of thing. And he said it was based on somebody being disgruntled and having an axe to grind. And I don't know if that's true or not true, but it bothers me that black police officers, for example, would have to go seek help from racially exclusive
organizations. That bothers me a little bit more
the hell out of me.
For a couple of other reasons, but because that feels more politically charged to me.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
A dating site does not.
Okay, man.
And even thinking about like the bar associations, that feels a little bit more politically charged to me than the dating sites.
Or doctors.
That's pushing towards segregation a little bit, I think.
Right.
But on a dating site, like I think race is a perfectly religion, look.
Yeah.
That's a perfectly acceptable way to sort out a dating site because those are individual attractive features.
But that
depending
site,
on who you are.
That site is saying, when you log on, basically they're saying, hey, blacks only.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. That's like a whites only on a lavatory door or something.
I think I don't know if there's a Christian dating site. I don't know whether it's a Christian only or you could be Jewish on there. I don't know.
No, there is. It's Christian only.
Yeah,
I'm sure you could go lie.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know how you get into the black
There's no laws
sites.
here. So these are private organizations.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. No,
so
I'm
we're just talking. We're just talking sort of.
I'm just talking about how it hit me.
Yeah.
And it bowled me over because I'm totally open to dating anybody of any
Yeah, but I'm not.
race.
Or maybe he's not. Or maybe somebody else isn't.
I got that.
So it's like, you look for what you like. And
but if a lady is on that site, that means she's basically saying not interested right up front. Like, black dudes only.
So at least you know where you're not going to go find your date.
And that's fine. Yeah.
Like, why would you want to filter through that in any other site?
Yeah.
Just get rid of that from the top.
Right. So the old Spencer Tracy movie where, guess who's coming to dinner, right? Remember that movie?
That was with what's his name?
Sidney Poitier.
Yeah.
Right?
It was a remake too with Ashton Kutcher.
So should Spencer,
and,
if he was so
Bernie
inclined, say, hey, hit the door, dude. You're not dating my daughter.
I'm sure it happens.
Yeah, right.
But that's different.
That's so wrong if they're in love with each other. I mean,
well,
this is basically
saying dating site
has
nothing to do with it.
It's basically saying we're not even going to give you a chance. Based on your skin color.
I am saying, I don't care who you're attracted to.
Yeah,
go find that person and make a family.
Yeah, well, you can't do it on this site.
Oh, sure you can.
If
you're attracted to blacks. And you're black.
And you're
right.
So if you're black and you want to raise a family with a and look, I think there's a lot of psychology about this. Like, what's his name? Thomas Sowell wrote a book. I think it was Race and Racism in America.
Mixed marriages are way harder.
Talking about how communities sort. And communities
mixed religion marriages are harder.
That's right.
Yeah. Communities,
They are.
Cultures tend to sort with their own.
No question.
They tend to do it. Yep. And we can try to engineer it from above, but
I don't want to engineer
human nature is we like what we like.
I guess I just didn't like this, it's shutting a door in the face of other people based on an immutable characteristic.
Only if you preclude the alternatives.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I look at it.
And then and it'll be interesting to see if it's commercially viable. If they survive.
Yeah, if they survive,
that is interesting.
Tells us all you need to know.
That's really interesting.
Hey, lastly, I want to say Happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
To all the moms out there. Yes. My mother is no longer with us, but she was the most incredible person I'll ever know. My mom. And so Happy Mother's Day to your mothers.
Yes.
And
happy
to your
Mother's
wives.
Day. Yes.
And to my ex-wife.
Yeah.
For she was a great mother, too.
There you go.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap it up. This has been Common Sense Ohio. I think we've pushed the bounds of our time limit far enough on this May 10, 2024. Going into Mother's Day, as Norm pointed out. We are, of course, brought to you by Harper Plus Accounting, where all your accounting needs can be met, whether they are big, whether they're small, whether you have a thriving entrepreneur spirit, or whether you just want to get your tax return. They have got the resources for you. And check us out. CommonSenseOhioShow.com. Check out the website, like it, share it. The Facebook numbers are growing. The videos we got the clips and the reels and the stuff and the videos.
Steve, we picked up 50 people in the last 2 weeks.
How about that?
That's unbelievable. So we're starting to snowball a little bit.
It's like wildfire right here in Ohio, where we are Common Sense Ohio, coming at you right from the middle, at least until now.